www.categories.com. My name is Jason JROCK Houston. Today we're speaking with bassist Chris Mclernon from the band Panic Room, excuse me. And many people know Chris from back in the day when he was a member of Saigon Kick. So if you don't mind, Chris, I'd like to ask a little bit about, when you think back on your time in Saigon Kick, I mean, what kind of really stands out to you? Was there a real special memory or time?
Yeah, there was a couple things. I mean, I can think of three off the bat. One was the fact that I got asked to do the audition because at the time, Saigon Kick literally was my favorite band.
Yeah.
So I got asked to audition thanks to, connections and people in the business and whatever. So I was right in.
Yeah.
So the fact that I got to join my favorite band was just an incredible highlight. The next one would have been watching Love Is on the Way climb the charts, going from playing the song that we didn't really even have in the set, to at one point playing it 7 times in one day as we did radio in Boston and New Hampshire and Rhode Island and all that stuff, Connecticut, all around that area. So just watching that thing climb, because it was a long, slow climb, was incredible. And then the other big highlight was when we went to Indonesia and we were playing places that Metallica and Sting had played.
Oh, amazing! Wow.
So yeah, it was incredible, and I had a bodyguard, and we had our own brand of cigarettes. They picked us up in a beer van, with a keg in it. it was out of control, but it was so much fun.
And here's a crazy question, because when you hear stuff like that, it's almost amazing. Like to think you go play in a place like Indonesia, and a band like Saigon Kick is, based on what you're telling me. I mean, it was like you were a lot more popular, I'm assuming, there than you were in your own country here in the U.S. That's got to be quite an amazing feeling.
It was very Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
And we made that joke more than once that, Sex Farm is going to #1. It was crazy because literally we make this long trip and we're loopy anyway, and we get off the plane in Jakarta and we have a police escort to get to the hotel. So we have a caravan, a motorcade, whatever you want to call it. And then as we're walking out of the airport, or riding out of the airport, there are people lined up wearing shirts that have our faces on them that are sponsored by the cigarette company, the Clove Cigarette Company, Jorum Super. And it was just so surreal.
and I was curious if you've been back since. I was just curious what it's been like since, you were initially there.
No, we haven't been back. I think the last time we were back was 95 or 6 on the Devil in Details. And
I love. It's very interesting when you hear stories like that. I mean, you take even a band like Mr. Big with Paul Gilbert and Billy Sheehan, and they were, for whatever reason, they were almost as huge as the Beatles, in Japan. A lot bigger in Japan than they ever were here in the U.S. And in fact, they're up until the time they broke up when their drummer died a few years ago. I mean, they would do like 3 or 4 shows a year in Japan, and they would just make bank. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's everyone's learning it much more now. But 20 years ago, everyone forgot how big the world is. Like, we found out Indonesia it was a country of like 250, 260 million people. That's massive. It's huge.
Yeah. And I guess, final question I'll ask about Saigon Kick is, it seemed like the band was kind of right on the cuff of breaking out in a real big way. I mean, why do you think that the band never really had that, that big explosion? Because, like, again, you guys were right on the cuff. Do you think it was just the timing and the grunge and all that?
I think that was part of it. I think also there were some decisions made and advice given by our management at the time that were not beneficial. And since
is that kind of what led to the breakup of the band?
I think that hastened it. Yeah. I mean, and the business is rife with this kind of stuff. I mean, the biggest example I have is we were offered to do the Bon Jovi tour that summer.
Yeah.
And the band was apparently assigned to go making a record in Sweden, of all places.
Wow.
And instead of going on with Bon Jovi, we had no material. We had nothing. The Water record turned out great. It was a fantastic experience. We wrote on the spot in the studio, which bands don't get to do anymore, and we came up with a really great record. I'm very proud of it. However, if we had gone out with Bon Jovi, there's nothing to say that we wouldn't have pushed the record to platinum.
Yeah, I totally agree. And
And then Extreme, who we were opening for in the U.S., they took the tour.
Oh, wow. It seemed to have worked out for them,
Yeah, they did okay.
Yeah, and let me ask you, since the breakup, have you guys ever gone back together, even for a one-off show, or have there been any desire to do a reunion?
Oh, yeah, we did a reunion, I think it was in 2013 or 14, and did a bunch of shows around the U.S., and it was just, everyone couldn't believe the reception we got. It was so much fun to play with everyone to begin with, but I was just personally blown away by the reaction. And friends of mine who came to see us who had never seen the band, just because of whatever, and they only knew me as their buddy the last 20 years who was in a band. They didn't get to see me do, as I like to say, they didn't get to see me do my job.
Yeah,
They were saying, I can't believe this. They're singing every word to every song. I was like, that's Saigon Kick fans. They are not neutral. They are all in.
Yeah, and so with that, why would the next step not be a record, or say, let's keep the band together?
I think it's a matter of schedules and locations.
Okay, and now I think it's time to move on talking about what we're supposed to be talking about today. Your new band, which, as I said at the top of the interview, is called Panic Room. Now, I was reading that initially Panic Room got together when drummer Phil Verone left Saigon Kick, and he formed this band. Were you part of a band initially 25 years ago when it was first formed?
Yes and no. When they first got it going, I was not. And then about 4 months later, I was. So, and at the time, it was called Planet Boom. So we found out when we reconvened to start doing stuff now that there was another band. There's a band in Australia called Planet Boom. So I suggested Panic Boom.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to there. But they had done a whole bunch of songs and written them and shopped it. And then Phil said, "Hey, do you want to jump in here?" And I said, "Yeah, by the way, I got a bunch of songs too." And they said, "Cool." So I brought mine in, and Randy Bates and I hit it off immediately as songwriting partners and vocalists. And it was just like reading each other's mind. And then, of course, you got Phil and I who had played together forever.
Yeah.
With these two other guitar players, Tony and Sean. And it gelled immediately, but it's just one of those things, kind of like a timing thing again. We couldn't make it happen. So.
And then plus, in between other, everybody's doing other things. I mean, Phil Verone himself was, briefly in Skid Row and doing other things. As I'm sure you were, but you mentioned the fact that you and him played together so long. I mean, as a rhythm section, I imagine you guys must be so tight after all these years of playing together, and probably can't imagine even thinking of playing with another drummer.
Yeah, it's definitely like mind reading. There's some things that I'll just suggest to him, do what you usually do here. And that's all I need to say. And he's like, okay, yeah, I got it. And he doesn't. Or if he doesn't get that one, I got do the other thing you do here. And okay, I got that one.
So Chris, you mentioned you're involved with so are you one of the lead vocals in the band, or you handle the background vocals?
Both. So Randy is by far the lead singer.
Okay.
But when we first got together, we were singing. I just sang what I heard in my head, and Randy's always sung on his own with backup vocals as they come in and come out. And he was like, "No, man, we got to sing together. This is amazing." So I was like,
that's cool too. When you got two guys that actually are, singing together. That's why I always love bands like you take a band like Kiss. They got more than one guy that can sing in the band, and so when you're listening to the record, that makes it that more interesting. To listen to. And some of my favorite Kiss songs, if you go back and you listen to those early Kiss records where they would combine like Gene and Paul's voice together. Those are real magical songs,
Oh yeah, like with Peter, get him in too, like with Kiss in Time or Got to Choose.
Even him and Peter, Chris, and Gene on something like Nothing to Lose,
Yeah, right. Nothing to Lose, great example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout Out Loud is another one.
Oh yeah, you're taking me back, and in fact, I guess you're probably a Kiss fan. Did you get a chance to check out the new 45th anniversary edition they put out of Destroyer?
Yes, I did. Where they had the alternate stuff on there.
I loved all those demos, and if you get a chance to hear like Paul doing the original vocal on the song that would become God of Thunder, that. People don't even realize that's a Paul Stanley tune.
Yeah, and you can get it if you're Paul and he's kind of look, I'm the God of Thunder, and I'm sexy, hey girls, how are you? But it's so obviously a Gene song.
Yeah.
You slow it down, and all of a sudden it's Gene.
That's why Gene did it. From what I understand, Bob Ezrin told Paul, no, that's a Gene song.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
He was absolutely right. But yeah, have you heard their copy or their cover of Rock and Roll Radio?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, with Eric Singer. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they trade vocals on that too, and it's really cool.
Yeah, cool stuff. Never go wrong with Kiss. So, like, how far along are you guys into like a full length album? Is that what we're working towards?
Yeah, everything is written. Revolution is the first single, and it's out now. I'm working on the second single, meaning mixing it right now, which is called "I Keep It to Myself." And then there's 8 more that are right behind it. So it's written, it's recorded, it's just being mixed.
And when your publicist sent me a press release about this band, I definitely wanted to interview one of you guys because it sounded like such a cool project. I mean, first of all, I'm reading the press release that although this has been kind of an ongoing band for the last 25 years, you guys haven't been too active, but at the same time, about a year and a half ago or so, maybe 2 years, Phil Varone was making an announcement that he was retiring from drumming and performing. And then part of the reason you guys kind of got active again was the documentary he put out. And you guys, I understand, created a song, and you just said, hey, let's do some more.
That's exactly right. We had Revolution was the one that was chosen for the soundtrack. So we went to go mix it with this one guy, and it just didn't gel. And then we gave it to, there was a label involved at the time, and they said, well, let us mix it, and they sat on it for 6 weeks. So I finally said to Varone, look, man, why don't you let me take a shot at it? What do we got to lose? And he said, yeah, please do it. So, because they liked what I had done for all the roughs and all the production stuff. So I mixed one, threw it at them. The band loved it, and so Phil took it to the label, and they flipped out, and they wanted to release it as a single and this and that. But things kind of collapsed there, so we've taken it on ourselves to do it at the moment. So that's where Revolution came from, and then Phil put the video together and made a lyric video, and that really set it apart too, which was very cool. And so we'll get this one out, and then start what's the word I'm looking for? Siphoning out all the other ones after that.
And then in all the time the band's been together, I don't imagine you guys have ever done a live show yet.
No, they did without me before I got in the band. But no, everyone's just, if it hasn't been a Zoom call, I haven't seen those guys recently.
So is that how you guys, like when you recorded, let's say, Revolution, is that how you guys did it, like via Zoom?
Well, kind of. We would, I did stuff for, and I still do, but did stuff extensively in TV for the last 15 years.
Wow.
So I would write with people from all around the U.S., so we would get this recipe on how to transfer files and edit and get our sounds and our mixes together, and then get them to NBC, ABC, Food Network, or whatever we were doing. So I just applied the same process to this. Phil would do his drums in Vegas. He'd send them to me. I'd chop up the arrangement, or like I said, ask him for a certain part. Can you do this? Can you do that? Then I would add the bass, and then whoever was playing guitar at that point would play guitar. Then we send it to Randy, who lives in LA, and he would drive to Phil's place in Vegas, and they'd kind of do a cram session over a weekend and write a bunch of vocals and do all that, and then they'd send it back to me. And then I would sing on it.
Wow.
And then, so it was just a matter of like this mosaic or quilt.
It's a modern way of doing things, and it is kind of cool, but in the sense that even with all this COVID stuff and the lockdowns, I love hearing about bands like this, that you guys are kind of keeping it going. You're not letting anything get in your way. So even if you don't live like down the street from each other, hey, that's not going to stop us from recording or creating music. I mean, you have bands who I've heard go on the record saying, we don't know what's going on with all this COVID stuff. We're not going to bother to release anything new or do anything until it's over. Well, who knows what hell that's going to be. That's why I tip my hat to you guys, because you're continuing to create new music.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got this one. I've got another band that I front that I wrote all the stuff for, and then I've got a third one behind that. And so I've got 3 projects going on at once, and I have a surf project that I do. So that record needs to be finished as well.
Oh wow. You're busy as hell, Chris, and that's good. And you mentioned about being involved with TV production and music projects, behind the scenes. Another guy I know that's very much involved in stuff like that over years is a lot of like 80 rockers guys I know. Adam Hamilton. He's played drums and bass for LA Guns. He's a big time producer now. You know, a lot of these guys, that's how they made their money. You know, when things went down in the music industry for a while. But you got to make a living, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was also in a band called Cold Sweat, and our two guitar players, Nat Mark Ferrari and Eric Gammons, both are involved. They're in LA, and they both have done TV for a while.
Yeah.
And they so I've worked with them as well. But yeah, it's a very, very easy and sensible parallel move.
And you're still getting to create music, you know, and be involved in the music industry. So it's cool, and in many ways it's a lot easier. But that's why I even have more respect for a guy like you that does all this, because you're really the true definition of a working musician. And you know, and I always love talking to guys that got that attitude that, you know, no, if I got to get a gig working the soundboard, or you know, I'll do that or whatever to help pay the bills, you know.
Yeah, well, thanks, and I think part of that is it's what we do. I mean, it's, you know, it's your craft. So, I've got a buddy of mine who's in Black and Blue, Jamie St. James, who's a singer.
Yeah.
And he said something to me once that was just perfect. He goes, "Look, man, this is who we are. Fame and money are an accident."
Yeah.
And they're nice to have, you know, and I'd rather be rich than poor.
Yeah.
But it's you do it because that's what you do. You can't help yourself. I had an uncle who was a mechanic.
Yeah.
And if you were driving down the street and you saw some kid with his bike turned upside down, he's fixing the chain or the whatever, the tire.
Yeah.
My Uncle Johnny would pull over and help him. He couldn't help himself. And I'm the same way. It's like, you know, I'm at a barbecue and I see someone starting fiddling around on a guitar and it's out of tune, I'll go over and say, "Hey, want me to tune that thing for you?" You know, and I just started playing 3 months ago. Yeah, you can't help it. It's in you. It's your DNA.
So, of course, you guys are in the process of finalizing the album and all. Do you have a projected release date for that?
Yeah, we do. We're shooting for mid-March.
Oh, that is cool. And once that happens, I imagine there'll be more videos and singles. But the question then is, have you guys talked anything about doing live shows? Is that a possibility at this point?
We thought about it. The only thing that would prevent it there would be cost, because you would have to have rehearsals. And you couldn't just, it's like, with Saigon Kick, we knew all the songs.
Yeah.
There was no doubt about that. So it's a matter of just kind of, okay, what order we put them in, what gets familiar. With some of these songs, we've written them all virtually, so we've never gotten in a room and played them together. Everyone would learn their parts, I'm sure, and be fine. But that would take probably about a week. So you got to figure we have to meet in some city. Everyone's got to be put up for a week and do all that stuff. And then you got to go out and support it. How? Yeah, so how do you get from city to city? How do you tour? Which is, you know, an expense. You know, imagine taking your business, setting it up in Chicago, and then tearing the whole business down, and then moving to Milwaukee and opening up for business again, just for that one day. And then do that 60, 70 times. It gets a little pricey. It's
a process, yeah. And, you know, you bring up a good point, because I was just getting ready to ask, you know, talking about, like, when you guys record the songs via Zoom, that's great, you know, as far as recording, being able to do it. But I would imagine to really get tight as a band and really rehearse, you would have to all be in the same room together.
Totally do, yeah. Especially, there's two things to me that need to be done live, and that's the rhythm section and the vocals are next.
Yeah, and you know, I do think there are other ways, like if you guys weren't able to go on a regular type of tour, you know, where you're doing all these dates, I do think maybe you could do like a special, maybe streaming event on your website or something, where say, you know, okay, we're going to get together, you know, on this particular day, the band will come live from somewhere, and, you know, you guys can go to this site and check it out.
Hey, well, you bring up a good point, and we've talked about that, because I've got a friend of mine who has done that, and it's turned out really well. Yeah. So we've thrown that idea around as well. So that can be really fun. Just go up and set up a stage and lighting and all that in a remote location, and go in and just pound out 8-9 songs and stream it.
Yeah. And so from the time you guys started recording this album, I mean, what was the process as far as, I mean, you explained doing it over Zoom and that, but like how many months, you know, what was the length of time it took to get all the songs recorded?
I don't know, that's a good question, because what happened was we started with an initial 10.
Okay.
And 10 became 12, which became 14, which became like 16. We now have something like 22.
Yeah.
So it's finally, you know, since I was elected producer, I said, all right, stop. Keep compiling ideas, and we'll use them, but we got to focus in on X amount of songs and finish those. Otherwise, we're just going to have these partial pieces done. So our two guitar players, matter of fact, met up yesterday. They were both in Atlanta, and they threw down a bunch of new ideas. They asked me, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Just get them down.
Yeah.
As long as you get them down, we have them." But because I don't want to say that we've got 10, 12 songs, nothing happens until those are done. No, if someone's got an idea, great, just sketch it, hang on to it.
And it sounds like everybody's kind of involved with the songwriting, or at least gets a chance to take part in it.
Oh yeah.
Which is cool, because that's not always the case in all bands. And being that the producer's job kind of falls on you, do you ever have the pressure of having the other guys come, why are you picking his song over mine, or do they kind of respect what you decide?
Yeah, I mean, it's in mild cases that's kind of happened. Like I like this arrangement a little better, but I always say to everyone, like when I throw out a bass line, I'll say, look, if you guys like it, great. If you don't, fine, tell me, and I'll be happy to change it and flip it around. Because
I think that's fair. Yeah.
What is best for the song? So everyone's kind of got this, at least from the producer on down, attitude that the song is first. So that nobody's got to argue about that, which is good.
That's cool. And sounds like there's definitely that chemistry in the band where no major egos.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all, at this point too, we've been around the block enough to know that collaboration, if you're going to be in a band, collaboration isn't always even on everyone's spot. So sometimes some guy, he's only 10% of one song, but he might be 90% of the next one.
Yeah, and I don't think it really matters, but I was curious as far as the songs that made it onto this album. Were these songs, since the band's been around kind of together one way or another the last 25 years, these songs that you've written over years, you guys, or is these songs kind of new that you just wrote in the last few years since the band got back together?
I'd say half and half. Some are from the original bunch, but then I'd say there's at least half of them are brand new. There was one that we have called Stardust that is absolutely brand new. Randy just threw it at us one day. He's like, "Hey, what do you think of this one?" I was like, "We're even hiding that one."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, we just came up with this." It's like, "That's fantastic. Yes, let's finish it."
And it doesn't really, it's not really important to me, because I think you'll agree, a good song is a good song no matter if it was just written today or 25 years ago,
Yeah, well, that's what's so funny about Revolution. Phil kept saying, look, it's still relevant, because it was written in 94, I think.
Wow.
And it's the same. It's still its own.
What's interesting about talking to you today, Chris, is, of course, a lot of people know you and Phil from, Saigon Kick and your other projects from over the years, like I said, but, and that's part of the reason there's been a lot, that I really been looking forward to doing this today, because there's a bit, even though the band's never, it's you said they played one maybe live show in the whole history of the band, and for a band that's been, kind of together for 25 years, that's amazing when you consider the buzz that's going around about this band, and the album is not even out yet, so I can't really wait to see how people react once the album's out. What has been the reaction you've gotten from putting out Revolution?
Really positive. The thing you're always afraid of, like you said, if you have a song from 25 years ago, is it going to sound like it was 25 years old? It's just nothing about it fits. The riff doesn't fit. The lyrics don't fit. It sounds like it's got a time stamp on it, but boom, mid-90s. And everything not everything, because, not everybody's nice. There's some pointed comments here and there, which, we'll always take. But the overwhelming response has been, wow, this is just, it's got so much fire, and it's got so much attitude, and it just hits you in the head when it comes out of the speakers, which we were ecstatic with, because you don't know. Sometimes you get so wrapped up in what you're doing, you can't see it clearly. So we liked it, which is important, but when other people started liking it as well, it was like, okay, we're still onto something. This is still good, so let's pursue it. And then the new stuff sounds like the old stuff, which is very cool, and it also sounds modern. So that's a good sign as well. That's
an interesting fit, and you were mentioning at the top interview that the band at one time was going to be named Planet Boom, and that's kind of, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a Tommy Lee solo tune
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Someone told me that later. It's like, well, good. I'm glad we changed it.
So good name, huh? Yeah, but so I like to ask a little about you, Chris. Now, like as far as get a little more on your background. As far as you being a bass player, I mean, who are some of the guys, your bass heroes when you were growing up?
Well, as previously mentioned, Gene Simmons for sure.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, Phil Lynott, Geezer Butler, Sting. Who else? Dennis Dunaway from the original Alice Cooper band.
Yeah. Oh, great guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's so overlooked. Let me see who else. I like what Ben Shepherd from Soundgarden. Awesome. He plays just the coolest bass lines. He really does. So it was people that could carry the band.
Yeah, it's interesting about all those guys you mentioned, with the exception of Geezer Butler. They're all guys that play the bass and sing now. And then, I think it's very interesting that you're also influenced by Geezer, one of my all-time favorite bass players. And what a lot of people don't realize about Geezer, if you listen to those early Black Sabbath albums with Ozzy, although they, split the songwriting credit, really Geezer's the guy that came up with the lyrics,
Yeah,
they were his songs.
Lyrics, yeah.
And people don't realize that, and I'm like, the guy can't even sing, but man, he came up with some great lyrics for that band.
Yeah, I love Geez. One of my career highlights when I was out with Cold Sweat, we were opening for Dio.
Oh, wow. That's legendary.
And we were playing Minneapolis, and we were out doing press, and we came back, and our tour manager says, Geezer Butler's going to be here tonight. I was like, you're kidding, really? That's awesome. He goes, yeah, and he wants to play your bass.
Wow.
I said, huh? Said, yeah, he and Ronnie are going to do Neon Nights. I was like, you're kidding me. And by just the weirdest luck of all luck, there were two bass players on the bill with us. Both were left-handed. I was the only right-handed bass player on the tour. So I said, yeah. I said, but there's one catch. And my tour manager just rolls his eyes like, what? And I said, I get to meet Geese. And he goes, well, I'll ask. I was like, no, there's no ask. I got to meet him. And we knew Ronnie well enough. Ronnie wouldn't say no way.
Yeah.
So I got to meet him. So I got to hang out with Geese for a little while. He was so cool, so polite, so friendly, so grateful. And I was just going, I'm talking to Geezer Butler, and he played my bass. Can it get any better than this?
Do you remember what city that was in, or what state? The reason I'm asking is because that's probably a gig where I remember reading Geezer Butler went to see a Dio show and talked backstage with Ronnie about, hey, let's get Black Sabbath back together.
That was the show.
Wow.
That was the show. Yeah, that was the show. That was. You can find it on YouTube. It's Minneapolis, and it would have been at the end of '90, so August or September, I think.
Wow, what a historical moment to be there, and have that guy play your bass. I mean, that's a dream come true. I mean, one of your guys that influenced you, he's requesting to play your bass.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I've been lucky like that. I've had Lemmy played one of my basses, Gene Simmons played one of my basses, Ed Van Halen gave me a bass.
Yeah.
So I've had really good luck with that sort of stuff.
And a lot of these guys that you mentioned that influenced you, they're singers too. So I was curious when you were coming up, were you initially just a bass player, or did you always want to be a singer and write songs too?
Always wanted to sing and write. I mean, even when we were in Madison, which is where I lived before I moved to Los Angeles, I was, it was me and two other guys we all sang lead. So
Wow.
I've always sang in every band I was in. And then when I got to LA, it was a matter of I was one of the few singing bass players, and I could sing and still can sing really high.
Yeah, and I'd imagine it's a lot easier, when you write songs, to sing your own songs. I understand when Dave Mustaine got fired from Metallica. That's part of the reason he became a singer. Initially, he was going to hire somebody else, get another singer to front Megadeth, but he thought all the guys he auditioned, he was like, I couldn't find a guy that could sing my songs the way I wanted them to be sung,
Right, sure, yeah. Totally get that. I got a friend of mine who said, singer's got to believe what he's singing.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah. And so, did you right away start singing in bands? And how long did it take you to get that comfort zone of being able to play the bass and, sing the lyrics and all that and feel like you had it?
It was immediate. It was just one of the things where everyone kind of looks around and goes, okay, well, who's going to sing? So
yeah, and it's one of those things. I guess.
I guess I'm one of them, so I'll take this one. You know?
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things too that that just goes to prove you were born to be in that spot, you know, in the band.
Yeah. I mean, I always sang as a kid in school and all that stuff, and whenever there's musicals or choirs on it, they always had me sing. Yeah. So I knew I could sing. It was just like in Saigon Kick, I preferred to just do my backup vocal to just play the bass. I was totally cool with that. When I was in Cold Sweat, I sang a lot more backups. There was just a lot of backups and that sort of stuff, which is cool. And then with this, with Panic Boom, it's I'm singing as practically as much as Randy on some songs, so which I'm cool with. I mean, I'm used to it. I know how to do it. I mean, the tail end of Saigon Kick, it was Jason and I singing all the vocals, so no matter what, I was now singing the other lead vocal part with Jason.
Wow, yeah. So I was going to ask, when you were with Cold Sweat, was that the point when they had Oni Logan as a frontman?
Yeah, we had Oni, and then George purloined Oni, and then we got Roy Cathy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Roy's a pretty cool guy. I interviewed him not too long ago. I'll be posting that soon. But
oh, cool, yeah. Just such a good singer. I mean, it's just such a strong voice.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So of course, I guess the next thing, like you said, as far as Panic Boom, but the album's projected to drop sometime in March. We're looking forward to that. Do you think with this, like, it kind of depends on how people react? Like, if the album's a hit, or do you plan to follow this up with future recordings, or are you kind of waiting and seeing right now?
No, since we're all self-propelled, I mean, we're not beholden to a record label to finance the record.
Yeah,
so we can write as much as we want. So the plan is we're going to keep going until we run out of ideas. Like I said, we have 2 whole records right now ready.
Oh, that's cool.
Not ready. Well, I'll say one's ready, and then the other, we got, let's say 2/3 done, but we have the songs. We just don't have them finished up. They're missing leads or a lyric, or, so they're in process. So,
I hear you. I mean, I know this other guy I've interviewed a lot of times, Sean Peck. Like, he's from the band Cage and Death. He's like in three bands, and he's told me, like, because of all this COVID lockdown stuff, he's got like his next 5 albums in the can, already recorded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one good thing about all this. And so that's the thing with a band like Panic Room. Even if you guys don't get out there and do any live shows for a while, you could be a successful recording project, and then probably by the time you're able to get out there and do some shows, people have had time to live with the album and the songs, and by the time you go do some shows, they'll be singing right along with you.
Yeah, which would be great, and then also we'd have enough material to do a full show.
Yeah. And I guess
as opposed to 45 minutes.
Yeah, and I guess the final question for today, Chris, is if we get any live shows or anything like that, or a special streaming event, as we were talking, there may be a possibility of that. You think you'll throw in like one or two maybe Saigon Kick songs, or do you want to keep this strictly Panic Room material?
I don't know. You're the first one to ask that.
Yeah.
So
because I can see it's a double-edged.
I think if people.
It's a double-edged sword,
Let's assume we did a streaming event and we did, what would you want to hear the set list? And let's say they all said we want to hear Susie.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we got to play Susie.
Yeah, and I guess obviously you're a songwriter, so you'd rather write. It makes sense to write fresh original material, but how do you feel about, like, would you ever consider doing a cover tune?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because we've tossed around a few ideas for covers, but mostly we'd want to put our own stamp on it. Like what was so great about bands like Van Halen, where when they did a cover tune, it was just so unique. Like my standard for that is Devo's version of Satisfaction. They just took that thing and made it their own.
Oh yeah. I probably song I can think of, like when Tesla did that cool cover of the song. Signs, they really they really owned it, and they, from what I understand, they sold more copies of that song than the original band.
Yeah, that was a great version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that sort of stuff where you go back and listen to the original and just go, whoa, that, like, the best examples are Blinded by the Light by Manfred Mann, the old Bruce Springsteen song.
Oh yeah.
wow, boy, that couldn't be any different. Diamonds and Rust by Priest, and then by Joan Baez.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an amazing one. And what's the other one? It was All Along the Watchtower.
Oh,
that's huge. The Hendrix version versus the Bob Dylan version, totally different.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, great songs. You cannot go wrong with that. Well, Chris, if you could hold on just for a minute before we wrap it up, I'd like to thank you for doing the interview. I really enjoyed talking to you. But if you could hold on for a minute, I'd like to ask you something.
Sure.